Welcome to another episode of Yelena Talks. This is now my 6th episode, and I am very excited to get into today's topic. It is titled Love or Manipulation. So let's get into it. I think that when people hear the word manipulation, most people think, oh, that's not me. I would never do that. That sounds evil. That sounds like Jezebel, if you know what I'm talking about. But here's why this is kind of an interesting topic, and that's why I wanted to explore it. Love is free will. Love is the ability to choose, not be coerced, not be, manipulated. So what do I mean by manipulated? Well, anytime you are almost staging or forcing someone to do something outside of their free will. So let's kind of go into it right away and hit the hard stuff and get into the meat. If a person is at peace and they are relaxed and they feel secure with who they are, then again, here's that word, they get to choose who they want in their life. But when a person is insecure, maybe they feel like they need outside external people to love them, to pick them. This is where it gets tricky. And this is why manipulation gets kind of, I think there are these like subconscious tactics, and sometimes we can recognize what we're doing flat out. And oftentimes I think it's so ingrained in our system and who we are that we don't even notice it. So for instance, ladies, listen up. We've talked about podcasts being the time where I go into feminine, masculine type of energy. Let's go into it. Anytime you are doing something to get a result, to make it happen, that is manipulation. Ladies, you don't want to manipulate, manipulate. You want him to choose you. You want to just be who you are. So by the time you're attracting employees, business partners, friends, romantic partners, obviously, they are choosing you. And of course, this goes into that schema last week we talked about approval seeking, recognition seeking. We're not doing anything to prove our worth and value so that people can choose. And I think sometimes like the good girls will do things like, oh, here's what I can do, and I can cook and bake, and here's my degree and my business, and I love kids, and. And it comes off kind of as advertising to get the attention of someone. Again, works driven. If that's your foundation, you are, you don't have to be screaming and yelling out your resume to people. But when you're trying to show and prove yourself, that puts you at a disadvantage because now you have to continue to do the same. But here's another example. For instance, let's just kind of get into it. Girls, if you are acting a certain way, being a certain way. For instance, maybe you feel like, hey, if I post this sexy pic and I'm going to get some guys' attention, guess what? You're right. You're going to get some guys' attention, but it might be for the wrong reasons because he's picking your sexy pic advertisement over you in the heart of who you are. And what are you going to have to do to continue to captivate his attention? Continue to act. No one's saying you can't be sexy. No one's saying you can't be beautiful and love who you are. But as soon as you're, again, using these tactics to get people to like you or pay attention to certain specific things, like let's say maybe your body or your degrees, it doesn't matter. You're setting yourself up for some disappointment because at the end of the day, you know what interested this person. You know what you put out. You know what he noticed you for. Again, doesn't matter if it's an employee, business person, friend, guy, it doesn't matter. You want to get to a place where you feel so secure in who you are, how you look, all that, where you just be. You rest. You just present who you are. I mean, it's not a performance. You are who you are. And the most interesting thing about relationships, any type of relationship, is our own issues, stuff that's deep inside, will start to come out. So in the beginning, maybe you feel pretty relaxed, cool, you got someone's attention, wonderful. Over time, When this person starts to give you that love or, reciprocate a relationship, there's something in attachment theory called, in attachment theory, the idea is your stuff will come out. How you relate to people will come out. Your insecurities will come out. But here's the good thing. If it's a good, healthy relationship, what's going to happen is God is going to use this other person to eliminate your triggers, your issues, your insecurities, your dark places. And it's not to expose you and make you sound like a horrible person as much as it's to illuminate some of those areas that are going to surface up, those little dark areas like baggage in the past, insecurities, fears, worries, all that. And then you get to work on them. You get to clean it up. And if, again, a person chose you because they love you, because they just are drawn to you and they choose you, then they will continue to choose you throughout that friendship, relationship, whatever. And anytime either one of you have issues, both of you will probably be committed to troubleshoot and work on them and grow and evolve and move forward. And eventually, if that person does not choose you anymore, the best thing you can say is, thank you for serving your purpose in my life. You are able to go. That season maybe has expired where they needed to be in your life. They served a purpose. You learned your lesson. And the worst thing you can do is hold on to something that's expired, meant to go, because it's going to leave anyways. And what happens when people get into this panic, desperate fear mode, they start to hang on and cling on to something that starts to exhaust and burn themselves out. And then it just feels horrible, really crappy. And then it still ends anyways. I'm sure we've all been guilty. I'm sure we've held on to friendships, different things in our life where we're like, here's the thing. We pray for one thing, God moves us forward, and then we're watching things like become left behind, and we start to panic and freak out, and then we are trying to stay back. And then we become the barrier to our own success, our own elevation, or whatever it is that we want to achieve. So the concept of love, I think, there's different forms of love. But I think, if we think of God, he doesn't just have love as a trait. God is love. That is who he is. It's his persona, his attribute, his title. He is love. And in that perfect love, again, when we think of attachment theory, when we think of this being, God, this entity, loving us so immensely and deeply, and he created us, you bet your insecurities and stuff is going to come out. This is why we have religion. No, I'm not worthy. No, the cross and all that you did, Jesus. No, let me prove to you. Let me do it by my works. And this is where religion is going to make you become a slave to your own works. That psychology, your core belief of you're not enough, you're never good enough, you always have to do more, continue to strive and sweat, get there, get to those next results, where God's like, what are you doing, child? I already love you for who you are. Now be out of that healed, wholesome identity. Do I think that there are like perfect people? No. Because I think we are all evolving, growing from glory to glory. I think this concept of us being restored to God's original design, I think people are talking about it. That's a good thing. Do I believe that sometimes we just got to kind of relax and experience life and love and relationships? Yes. And do I think that sometimes we complain about external people without recognizing whatever's inside of us is what's drawing that? Yeah, I think that's a problem. I just think of these girls. I remember working in counseling with young girls who would do, the things they would do to captivate these players pretty much. And how long were these guys' interest or eyes set on these girls? For like 2 seconds if they got something out of it. And I just watched these girls exhaust themselves, looking hotter, bolder, bigger, sexier, all of that, just because they didn't believe that they were enough. and that there's a guy out there that's going to love them for them, period. And everything they got after these guys would be bonus points. It just makes me so sad. I remember this one pastor was saying, it's like, listen, by the time we have these girls that are like trafficked and pimped out and just destroying their life and body and their soul, essentially, it sucks because they're looking, every daughter, every girl is looking for some kind of purpose, some kind of value for someone to say you're beautiful. And if this girl doesn't know that, if her dad, her, let's say, earthly father doesn't do that, and if, let's say, maybe she doesn't know or believe in what the Heavenly Father says, guess what? There's going to be some loser, some schmuck who says, hey, you're cute. Play off of her vulnerabilities. She lets those words permeate her heart, and boom. Now she's a slave to whatever trade she's in. And I remember there was a mom asking, one time I saw this YouTube video where this mom was like asking this guy, like, I'm so scared. My daughter's 13. The internet is just so vicious. You know, there's people who are just like catfishing all the time. I'm so afraid what's going to happen to my 13-year-old daughter. Like, what should I do? It's unrealistic for me to just turn off all social media and, you know, anything web related. And this man said, would I limit your daughter's, you know, do some kind of parental screen control or whatever on the daughter's phone? Yes. But the single best preventative, secure option to help your daughter not get into these situations where she's compromised is build up this child's self-esteem. I think that's so true. Because again, when a human being knows who they are, whose they are, values, worth, identity, you know, the devil, who's the father of all lies, who kills, steals, and destroys, she's going to be able to screen that out really fast because she knows she's valued. If something comes at her, just try to disprove or challenge her thinking about who she is, she's going to know right away and discern, that sounds like the voice of Satan. And no, I'm not talking about being this like narcissistic, entitled, I'm perfect, I'm this and that. That, you know, that comes from a vain heart. And I'd say at the core, those people as well, like the more narcissistic style type of people, surprisingly, those are the most actually broken, empty, vulnerable people who, again, have no sense of self-esteem or value or identity. And they usually come from also pretty messed up pasts. And sometimes that's their coping mode. They have to almost live in a delusion where they almost become too grand in their eyes because deep inside they just feel like dirt. And so it's this balance of like healthy pride. I know who I am. I know whose I am. My dad is the king. But also humility of like, okay, we don't need to self-exalt. Royalty is already in my blood. I don't need to self-promote myself. You know, I'm here to serve. I'm here to shine difference. And so I just kind of think about this concept of even like outfits. And, you know, again, I want to go back and say, I don't think dressing beautiful is a bad thing. I think it all really does come down to the motivation of people's hearts. And I don't care if we're talking about adorning ourselves with beautiful things or jewelry or doing your hair or makeup or even how your outfits look. I think I see two extremes that, in my opinion, are not healthy, because at the core of it, I think God does judge at with whatever's in our heart. You know, and the Bible even talks about, like, there was this one Bible verse talking about something as simple as like eating certain foods, where like Jewish people weren't allowed to eat certain foods, but the Gentiles were. And so what do? You know, at one point, I think it was Paul or Peter, I was mix those up. One of them was like, hey, when I'm with the Jews, I act and dress and talk like the Jews, or if I'm with the other subset of people, I'm like them. But I think it's important to not get lost in who you are as a person. I think it's like, that's the problem though. If he had a maladaptive schema of that approval seeking, recognition seeking, then if it was unhealthy, then he would be chameleon and people please and lose who he is. And again, the spirit wouldn't be able to fully move through him if he's trying to conform to the world. So again, but because of our spirit, we're not we're in this world, but we're not of the world. So our substance has to be different, but because our spirit is different. But then how do we get along with people? How do we do life and not almost have this like cult-like separation? I just need to be so different. I need to preserve my people, my ways, my customs. I think that's sometimes where we get kind of confused. And at the core of it, if fear is making you isolate, that's a problem. That's also a maladaptive schema. There's one called isolation and alienation. Again, I know we're aliens, quote unquote, technically speaking, but when it comes to the world, we're here to bring kingdom. So what are we regaining? We're not asking people to join our little groups. We're here to permeate. And I think everyone has their own spot in life and society. And the more you could stay true to that, the better. So kind of going back to this concept of like clothing or whatnot. Like it was Peter or Paul who had said, or is it Jesus, or like there's just this Bible story that talked about like whatever is on your heart, like what you believe about that, you will be judged. And I guess, it kind of makes me sad, but at the same time, I'm still figuring out for myself, like, I know like certain churches or cultures, like it's appropriate to dress up and be a certain way. Okay, fine. We can respect some of that and accustom to it. Not at the point where we're just like losing who we are. But I just have noticed sometimes people will grow up in one church and preach, you have to look like this, dress like that, and be like this. But then like outside of that building, whether they go to another church or just outside, they act so different. So I think that's a little confusing. And my opinion is that's kind of double-mindedness, actually, having these like double standards of what's important. And I think, believe it or not, this is my opinion, I think that a person who dresses a certain way and believes that this is appropriate, no matter where they're at, I think if they have peace about it, they might be fine compared to someone who I think has some issues and maybe even sin, although I don't want to label that for anybody, if they are double-minded. Meaning, anyone who doesn't look like this is going to go to hell. And then outside of that building, that's exactly what they're doing. They just condemn themselves pretty much. And that's why I think double-mindedness is a problem. And so, again, I think it's not about how conservative and modest someone dresses. I think that's beautiful. That's wonderful. And I don't care if there's someone who dresses in something that in their culture totally makes sense and it's more revealing. To me, that external stuff doesn't matter. What matters is what's on the inside. Do you have peace? Are you secure? Are you calm? Are you kind? Are you loving? Or are you, vicious and mean and judgy and resentful, and you look at other people with disdain, like they're less than you? Because that, again, that's actually a narcissistic trait, which I think is a problem. So I don't care how narcissists dress up or down. It's the heart that God looks at. John the Baptist, he talks in the Bible where he's just dressed in, camel's clothing? I mean, I don't know. He probably looked like some homeless guy that's like on an island or something. But, he was doing the call of his life, and people thought he was weird and looked weird, but he was like really living out his purpose. And before he was even born into the world, and he was in the womb. God already had a purpose for him. And when Mary spoke to Elizabeth, who's pregnant with John, Mary, Jesus' mom, was also pregnant at the time, she's like, you have, she mentioned something about the calling of this child, the destiny in this child. And it says the baby leaped in her stomach or in her womb. And even Elizabeth knew exactly how the baby was conceived. There was purpose and a plan, because she was trying to get pregnant forever, came to super old age, gets pregnant by a miracle. That whole encounter was angelic and divine, which kind of leads me into my free talk, I guess, lover manipulation. I know that's our title, but I'm just speaking things on my mind, which kind of reminds me of this abortion situation that was passed recently. A lot of opinions, I get it. Now, I am not here to tell anyone what they should or should not do, because at the end of the day, what really matters is you discovering truth in Christ and peace and having that type of revelation. But I just think it's interesting that almost every Bible character, I look at, Bible says God already knew you before you were formed. Okay, before I even gave you one cell to then divide into 2, 4, 8. I already knew you. He already has plans for you to prosper, and we're here to experience that prosperity and abundance. But unfortunately, we limit that ourselves. And I get it, like outside stuff like culture, influences, traumas. I understand. That's a real thing. But it seems like sometimes they say there's a will, there's a way. And if you start to believe there's a purpose for you, you will start to seek. And the Bible says, if you seek, you will find. So it's this natural like progression of you like evolving and experiencing and finding what you want. And so anyways, some of these women that were pregnant, doesn't even matter. These babies had destinies before they were even out into the outside world. So I just think it's very interesting that people think that, well, I think it's interesting that we think we could just like abort God's plans. But, by the way, abortion isn't just a baby dying, being aborted. I heard one time this concept of like, is this like a quote unquote abortion spirit over you? Everything you start, it gets aborted. Everything you try to do, it ends. That's also something interesting for people to sometimes go into and see what are some patterns going on. What do we need to break off? What do we need to do different? So anyways, kind of going back to love or manipulation. Let me take a quick sip of my iced tea. That's good. The greatest thing that I think people can experience is love. But here's the thing, you have to be able to have enough heart space in your heart and life to receive love. And I look at so many girls, and that's my population I speak to primarily. So many girls want to be loved, but you have to be able to receive love, to be loved. You can't keep on giving. It just makes me kind of sad when I see so many girls who give, but it comes out of a place where deep inside, subconsciously maybe, they don't feel like they're worthy enough to just be. So they have to try to be more perfect, more this, more that. And the more they're proving themselves, or in that masculine where they need to, again, exert themselves, the only type of people that they'll attract is extremely effeminate type of men, who are like unhealed guys pretty much, that are either mama's boys or obsessed with their own looks and stuff, and obsessed with themselves, very in that feminine, unhealthy energy. That's the only dynamic that's going to really work out. Or sometimes, sometimes I, without sounding disrespectful, sometimes I see a lot of these girls single. I'm sorry if that strikes a nerve to someone, but remember, my listeners, if something I ever say or anyone triggers you, look within and process out, why is that trigger? Why does that bother you? Because truth hurts, but truth is supposed to heal. And so if someone says something and you feel hurt, you have to sit down and discern, is this stuff in your own life, your own baggage that needs to be cleaned out? Or is that other person actually truly being rude and disrespectful, and you don't need to unite ways with them, and you don't even have to let their hurtful words plant seeds into your heart? But let me go back. What I'm saying is, I've met so many girls give, and they're not really pleased with the type of men they're attracting, because they're, again, kind of mama's boys or lazy, or they don't really want to reciprocate, or they're just kind of single because even if a masculine man wants to come into their life and give and love you and protect you, like, right, show how he loves, these are girls that don't know how to receive. And so let's go back. Why would a person not be able to receive? What's going on? I think that the psychology and spirituality behind that is crazy. Again, does it come from a spot where I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't deserve something so good, or I need to be better? This works type of stuff where you're never enough. Sometimes I know that I've worked with lots of girls who just have these patterns. Like the things, we have these like maladaptive schemas form because our early origins kind of program us. And so like, for instance, if maybe we have father figures, dads, males in our life who are absent or emotionally absent, or in some words, hurtful or whatnot, we start to kind of close up our hearts. We cope. And whatever heart space we have filled up or not, we're going to recreate those type of relationships. So like, let's say you're used to having, let's say you do have males, father figures in your life. Maybe they're pretty good, decent guys, but let's say they're emotionally unavailable. Like they don't know how to connect to their own hearts, which oftentimes people don't know how to do that. That's like another level of skill and awareness. And maybe like these are dads who are not able to sit and be present and talk and express to their daughters, I love you, you're so beautiful, you're so precious, even if that is what they feel towards their daughters. What happens is a girl starts to want to find that in different ways, but unless we go in and break that off, like literally like with counselors or with Holy Spirit, just really choose to forgive and recognize this person was able to give and show me as much as they had on the inside for themselves, as much as they were taught. That does not reduce my value, or my value is not dependent by their ability to affirm who I am. When we start to just close that up, that's step one. Step two, well, step one is identify, right? What's going on. Step two, I think, is that like forgiveness, closure. And once we know that, then by faith, we believe we are different, which means we do life different, which means, ladies, the next time a man wants to open the door for you, let him. Because we're so like, oh, that's so cool that guy does that, or see how he did that in the movies for that girl. And then a man wants to do it for us, and either we beat him to the door and never let him have the opportunity to serve us, or if it starts to feel so weird, our insecurities, our body, we just start to feel so uncomfortable that we try to problem solve by doing it for us. And then the same girls are stuck in that cycle, dreaming, oh, I wish this man would open the door. Now, I get it. Not every guy is like perfect or healthy or knows, but I'm just saying, like, ladies, give people space to walk to you, to show effort, that they care, that they want to serve you, that they want to pursue you, that they want to work with you, that they want to hang out with you. You will never know until you give some healthy space. Because if you're always busting your butt and you're doing all the first steps, initiation, pursuit, all that from work to personal life, you're going to continue to be in that masculine. That's going to continue to burn you out. And then when real problems happen and you have to fall back, and then you're like, no one's coming to me. No one's picking, no one's helping me. Well, yeah, you probably attracted only people who are used to you stepping it up. They were so in that maybe unhealthy feminine energy. They never had to do anything. And now you need some help. If they don't have that ability to step up in the beginning, they probably don't later. And so, how we start things, that foundation within us, what we see in the beginning is usually what's going to carry out later. Just because you started a certain cycle or repeated a certain negative cycle, but it's a new person, it doesn't mean it's not going to be the same later. It's in 6 months. It's not a guarantee. It's like when girls get with friends, guys, hire people that in the beginning it's unhealthy, and then they're complaining later on that they have unhealthy consequences and byproducts for those unhealthy connections. And then it's like, well, I'm growing. Why is he not? Well, because that wasn't a goal maybe that you had initially, or you didn't unite with yourself with someone who had that as a goal, and so now you're trying to make him, aka manipulate him into doing something, or else we break up, or else I fire you, or else. Yeah, it's like a lot harder for people to just rest, especially women. Sit back, put out, hey, here's who I am, this is what I'm looking for, maybe in terms of like business, or if it's dating, hey, this is who I am. Just kind of presenting yourself and leave it and give space. Who wants to pursue will pursue. Let me give you a couple examples, personal and professional life. I, starting a business, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is needed at the same time, but it's like, I know startup mode is already insane growth mode, but it's like not possible to have everything done at the same time. And it's like hard because it's like as my company evolves and grows, branding takes time. Hey, I thought this looked nice, but the more I see it, the more I don't love it. Or I thought this is the population I wanted to serve in terms of my niche, but this is kind of changing. This is more fun for me. So there's like a natural progression or evolution that happens with business. And so the idea is building a business. I know it's like everything seems super important right away, but takes time, and it's more like running a marathon than a sprint. Okay, you got to hunker down and recognize there's a lot, pace yourself, keep going, but little short sprints are going to burn you out. And so I've had to practice, like, where do I put out, ask for help, and sit back and see who meets my need, because usually the people who step up powerfully in the beginning are the ones that are going to continue to do so later, versus me begging around from chasing clients and being like, hey, want to work with me? Hey. That's going to continue forever, and that's exhausting. I'm too mature for that. No, thank you. But same thing with contractors. If I'm begging people to like reply to their messages, or, hey, how can I help you? Then I've set the stage for that, and that's what I'm going to attract, versus this is what I need, and pull back. Who can step up and meet that need? And I remember kind of a funny story when I was looking for a photographer. In the beginning, I just had some selfies that I did. Of course, that's not going to sustain in the long run. And then it was like when my family can take photos, and I love my family. I just don't know how gifted they are with taking photos. I remember I had this like simple I was holding my phone exactly how I wanted. And I'm like, Dad, can you please take a photo of me? I don't know how 3 shots later, he was now squatting on the ground, like angled the photo 90 degrees. And what he was somehow subconsciously featuring was his greenhouse and his solar panels. And I was somewhere in the background. Oh my. So it was kind of funny, but I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. And so what I decided to do is, as a joke, just for fun, like kind of in my feminine, having a fun time, I posted this on my story on Instagram saying, oh my, when your family is your photographer, this is what happens. And, I don't know. I just in my spirit, or I don't know how to even say it. I just felt like put it out there for fun. Just put it out there. Oh my goodness. Like within 24 hours, a girl responded and said, hey, I noticed. She was actually following me already on Instagram. And she said, I noticed you might need some help with photography. If you're interested in some professional headshots or a photo shoot, I actually have a business on the side that I'm doing. Let me know if you'd like to connect. Boom. I put it out there. Someone responded, right? If that's their purpose, then they entered that masculine and pursued. I received, and I then entered my masculine energy in terms of work. I typed her a message saying, yes, please, here's what I'm looking for. This is what I want. And then she met, yep, got it done. And then when I went to my photo shoot, I was beyond impressed, because the way this girl initiated and stepped up with her business, like reaching out to me, is the same way that then she found the most beautiful spot in town, some beautiful building. I've never even seen this place. And she did such a beautiful job of just creating the most beautiful space. And since then, it's like, I just tell her what I need. She does it. But the thing is, she produces, by the way, very, very beautiful results. So that's like cherry on top, exactly what I needed. But the thing is, I kind of put out what I needed, and I had a retreat. I wasn't like emailing a trillion people. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying there's a time and place for everything. And some of the best people I've worked with, I kind of put out, hey, kind of this is what I need. And they come up with the plan, they pursue, they initiate, they agree, they add their own ideas, they go into it. that lets me sit back as a business person, kind of relax a little bit and know I have amazing people who love what they do and they're go-getters. And they showed me that from the beginning. And I have no problem paying them their worth and value, let me tell you, because they go above and beyond. And I have a lot of peace about it. So that's kind of like a story with like a photographer. And actually a lot of my contractors kind of came in my life that way. I also believe when something is like really time, God will really divinely orchestrate those areas. But let's do another little quick personal story. Love. My girls love, right? I love, and I love to love. Being pursued, giving space for a man to pursue you. Let me tell you a quick story. Well, as I said in my last podcast, I'm happily dating, and here's some of the things that I noticed about this man in the beginning that really sparked my attention. I knew what I wanted, but I really had to pull back and let a man show himself to me. And I remember this guy asked me out on the first date. It went good. And it was kind of interesting. There was a little miscommunication, probably on my end. And he, kind of let me know he's interested in having, in going on a second date. At the time I was unsure, but, I remember I was like, oh, okay, let's try again. I'm telling you, it was hard to not be impressed by this man because I was so kind of unsure and I didn't really know who he was. And that's another story, but I just remember the thoughts I'd have it'd be kind of cool if we met somewhere close to my house so I don't have to drive too far out, because last time it was kind of a further out drive. I didn't express that to him. I mean, again, I don't expect him to read my mind, but I just remember I thought that, and instead of me sitting there and scheduling the next date, what time, where, what's convenient for me, I just watched him step up, and somehow we were aligned in spirit or something, because he texted me, hey, which side of town do you live on? Do you want to meet here or there? Whatever's closer. And I just remember, again, I don't know who this man is, but I'm watching how he's stepping it up and how that makes me feel. And it was so amazing. I just remember looking at my little phone and just smiling, who is this? It felt so nice. And then there, I didn't I don't remember. I was at the lake or something, and I just gave him space to schedule and give me some variety. And I just day after day I'd watch him pursue, and then he'd call and he'd do all these things that I'd wanted, but instead of me chasing and initiating all that because I wanted to be on a phone call, I watched a man choose that, want that, and do it. And I just had to pick up the phone and say, hello. It feels so nice being on that receiving end versus you're the one calling and texting and doing all these things. And what I'm saying is it takes some vulnerability to step back, but when you're healthy and you're relaxed and you step back, you get to watch people step up, and that is so beautiful. I don't care if it's professional, seeing my photographer, my social media manager, my admin person, my film person, seeing them step up and be bold in their dreams and pursue that to me is so beautiful, and I get to watch that. It's just as beautiful as when my man chooses me and steps up. I'm not saying I never participate or do anything, but I just love his healthy masculine energy. Right? It's even when we're dancing, right? He'll lead. We went country swing dancing one time. It was so beautiful. And it was I didn't even have to do anything but twirl around him. And he twirled me most of the time. That's so fun. That's so relaxing. That's healthy. Ladies, being in your feminine energy is so necessary. And if you're an entrepreneur type of person, or, business, you're working, that's already masculine. That's exhausting. I already have to do enough stuff that when I can sit back and receive help from my contractors at work, my family, my boyfriend, I will happily receive without necessarily being in that toxic or wounded feminine where I'm now lazy or incompetent or can't do anything by myself. That's not good either. It's just this balance. And anytime I find any kind of insecurity come up, usually I just got to sit back with God and say, God, where's this coming from? I know you love me. I know you're good to me. Why do I feel like this? Where does this come from? What door was opened in my life that I feel like I need to prove myself or do X, Y, and Z? Help me stay at peace. If I believe what the Bible says, I have everything I need. Why am I doing extra? Why do I feel like I need an extra credit points or something? And I remember I heard a pastor recently say, the blessed are the poor in spirit, or I think that's what the Bible verse is. And what is poor in spirit? And he broke it down. Technically speaking, what that means is you only have what you need for today. Let tomorrow worry for itself. It's like manna. The Israelites needed to pick manna only for today's worth. Your prayers, your everything is sufficient for today. Do what you need today. For tomorrow, we start up again and we go again tomorrow. And so whatever I'm lacking, it's more like a perception or insecurity type of thing. Because the Bible says we got everything. Everything that we need is done for today. It's kind of funny. I'm watching this. I have like a beautiful window view of our yard outside, and I have a little red hummingbird feeder, and this beautiful, beautiful hummingbird just came up and started to sip the little sugar water. And it's like, this hummingbird doesn't even know that some human went out and bought a bird feeder, combined, the water and sugar, and did all this, and found a beautiful placement. She just comes, takes the water, and leave. But I took care of that. And it's like in the Bible says, his birds are taken care of, whether it's like humans or he produces plants. God has enough of creation to sustain these little birds, sparrows. How much more does he care about us? It's sad to believe. If any time I feel like I don't have enough, something's coming up, it's usually kind of my own fears or a scarcity kind of issue, or even some orphan spirit stuff that I still need to work on, because last time I checked, the Bible says I'm a co-heir of Christ, literally written in his will. I have spiritual, heavenly, royal DNA in my body. I am adopted as his own by the Most High. The King of Kings is my Father. I approach the throne room boldly. I don't beg for anything. I speak with authority. So anytime I start to have any kind of insecurity, and I forget that I'm fully loved, and if I don't operate out of love, out of that security, that's when issues come up. So I'm going to wrap up for today. I really enjoyed this conversation today. Feel free to leave comments. As always, I so love hearing from you all. Give me more ideas of what to talk about. I'm already excited for next week's topic, although I am going to just enjoy today and just remind you, we don't mean to manipulate. We sometimes do it out of insecurity. And anytime we're just trying to really control and get some results our way, that's when we get in trouble. And the best type of love we know is healthy love. If we don't want to be controlled and manipulated and coerced by others, then believe that, others want to feel the same from us. And so the healthier we are, the more healthy self-love we have for ourselves, the more we can give that to other people and give them options to choose. Yes, no, this, that. And someone who doesn't choose us, it means our paths aren't aligned, and have faith that God has what he needs for you. And people who will choose you will step up. And so ladies, love yourself the way Christ loves you. Be free, have fun, be feminine. I really like this. Be feminine, fun, and freedom. Have that. And have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day. I'm looking forward for our next podcast. As always, subscribe, Yelena Talks. Currently working on a website. Very excited for that big project, and even more excited for the beauty that the world will experience because you are alive.